Well, hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanne and I am a law student from Melbourne in Victoria, Australia. I come from the land down under. Hello, Harrison. That's finished now. I'm finished. So, I want to talk about politicians. I came across something today about a politician suing another politician. Well, not suing, that's a human rights case. And I wanted to discuss whether or not politicians should be able to take other politicians to court. Because, so essentially, there was a tweet, it involves a tweet, and essentially this politician wants an apology and $150,000 donated to charity. It's a very interesting, and now here's the interesting thing. The other thing that has me interested is that they're both senators in the Australian Federal Parliament, so they're both senators. And they have funded a lot of their legal fees through crowdfunding. There's another issue that I have got. Another issue that I sort of have, because should they be allowed to raise funds to go to court? Now, I've noticed their lawyers they've got the pretty high-end lawyers. So this is what's happened. So today, I'm just going to use this from the Newswire. And then I want to look at the Guardian, because the Guardian was there live today. Hanson Sewer, a hypocrite, the court told. One Nation leader, Pauline Hanson, has argued Deputy Greens leader Mehreen Faruqi, I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce the name, is a hypocrite and only against certain forms of racism, as she defends telling the senator to pee off back to Pakistan in federal court. So there was something that happened, and this is what Senator Hanson's legal representation presented Senator Faruqi during cross-examination with a historical tweet by her son and the Age's cultural editor, Osim Faruqi, along with a since-deleted Instagram post in which Senator Faruqi is standing alongside a protester holding a sign that is said to say, "Keep the world clean," alongside an image of an Israeli national flag above a rubbish bin. The social media materials were posted to illustrate a disregard for what Senator Hanson's representative argued was racism against white people. Senator Faruqi's counterparts labelled Senator Hanson a prolific sayer of racist things who provoked a pile-on against her in the opening statement of their racial discrimination bid before Sydney's federal court. Yes, it's about racial discrimination. Senator Hanson's, the senators' stoush began following the death of Queen Elizabeth II. On September 9th, 2022, Senator Faruqi tweeted, "I cannot mourn the leader of a racist empire built on stolen lives, land, and wealth of colonized people." Senator Hanson later responded to the tweet with the offending remark. She reiterated the sentiment in Parliament, contending that she would take the Deputy Greens leader to the airport and put her on a plane and wave her away. While the statement was covered by parliamentary privilege, she would later withdraw her under a threat of a Senate censure. Senator Faruqi took Senator Hanson to the Human Rights Commission over the tweet before suing the One Nation leader. The Deputy Greens leader contended she had faced a torrent of abuse messages in the wake of Senator Hanson's statement. That's true, short order. If they do GoFundMe, it's now public money. They can. So yes, it's all about this. So she's accessed the Parliamentary Workplace Support Service for more than a year since Ms. Hanson's statement, the court was told. The tweet added to years and years of experiencing racist speech and racist act. This was different. It came from a colleague. It came publicly and unleashed. Oh, not really public's money yet. As she expected, it would be the moment she saw a torrent of abuse that made her doubt her place in Australia, Senator Faruqi's chief representative, Sol Holt-Casey, said. The tweet was making a brown Muslim migrant to a lesser person. It was a message of exclusion, just on the face of words, from the nation delivered to a migrant because she was a migrant. Mr. Holt said the statement was also a trigger for vicarious racism that negatively impact of those of similar origin to Senator Faruqi. Chief Federal Court Justice Angus Morkel-Stewart is presiding over the 5-day federal court hearing. And my other thing is, this court hearing is involving 2 Australians federal senators. Why is this being done in secret, and why isn't the public available to see what's happening here? Because Parliament is sitting at the moment, by the way. Senator Hanson enlisted Senior Counsel Sue Chrysanthou, known for representing former Attorney General Christian Porter and Channel 10's Lisa Wilkinson. It's really interesting that she got a defamation lawyer for a racial discrimination case. Senator Faruqi's representation is led by Mr. Holt, barrister Jersey Taylor, and the firm Mark Lawyers. Ms. Chrysanthou told the court the evidence tendered by Senator Faruqi showed she faced abuse over her comments from the media and the public prior to Senator Hanson's response. One might think on reading Senator Faruqi's initial tweet at the time, on the day it was posted, that it was intended to elicit a response, she said. One might think, just on reading that tweet, that it was intended to provoke and that it intended to offend and that it intended to upset those who read it. Ms. Chrysanthou told the court the barrage of abuse Senator Faruqi described started because of her own tweet, not because of my client's tweet. If a person enters the fray in such a provocative way, they expect and seek out a response. Ms. Chrysanthou's opening statement in defence of Senator Hanson also argued the One Nation founder was protected by freedom of speech, and Senator Faruqi had sworn an oath of loyalty to the Queen when she was sworn into the Senate. Senator Faruqi previously faced criticism from congratulating a group of student protesters, among which was the sign bearer carrying an anti-Semitic placard. Senator Faruqi took down the Instagram post once she became aware of the sign in the image, the court told. During cross-examination, Ms. Chrysanthou contended that Senator Faruqi displayed a regular pattern of mistakenly perceiving racial slights against her while offending others online in a manner similar to what Ms. Hanson faces trial for. The relevance of Ms. Chrysanthou's argument faced scrutiny from both Justice Stewart and Senator Faruqi when a tweet by Osman Faruqi was presented to Senator Faruqi. The December 2017 tweet by Mr. Faruqi reads, mediocre white people, they should be put in the bin, but instead they own everything and are every effing where. Senator Faruqi contended the statement, which Ms. Chrysanthou argued also reflected the Queen's senator's view. It was not racist. Short order. But my biggest thing is that this is from something that started in Parliament from a because Pauline Hanson made a comment in Parliament about it, and that's where that stemmed from. So it's something that's happened in their workplace, I guess. Senator Faruqi contended the statement, which Ms. Chrysanthou also argued reflected the Green senator's views, was not racist. Skin colour is about who holds power in this country or anywhere else in the world. It is tied to who holds power and who has authority to perpetuate racism and oppress people. And in this country, the power of that is held by white people, Senator Faruqi said. If you look at it historically, Australia was colonised by white people with the bloody disposition and theft of First Nations land. The power has always lain with the white narrative. So there is a clear distinction when it comes to racism. Elements of Ms. Chrysanthou's hypocrisy argument highlighted Senator Faruqi telling Scott Morrison to F off in 2019 during the Black Summer bushfires and dismissing a public speaker as a white feminist. Ms. Chrysanthou contended that Senator Faruqi, in highlighting a person's race as being white, was seeking to undermine or denigrate them, and that she had specifically targeted Senator Hanson. That's true. I was, to be honest with you, Short Order Cook, I think what she's complaining about is tame. Yeah, you know. Ms. Chrysanthou contended that Senator Faruqi, in highlighting a person's race as being white, was seeking to undermine or denigrate them, and that she had specifically targeted Senator Hanson to her commonly being a political opponent. I want to suggest to you that there wasn't any difference in the substance, in tone, or content between your comments and you received before Senator Hanson's tweet that day and the comments you received after. To illustrate the immediate psychological harm of Senator Hanson's statement on Senator Faruqi, the Greens Deputy Leader Silk pointed to a day of personal leave she took in the aftermath of the tweet. However, the claim came under scrutiny when evidence could not be lodged verifying the date of this mental health day. It was a pretty traumatic week, some uncertain whether it was Sunday or Monday or whether it was both days, she said in cross-examinations. Senators don't submit leave forms for days we take off. We hardly take days off. So I wouldn't have a record which says I took a day of leave. On February 29, an interlocutory hearing determined the vast majority of evidence tendered by Senator Faruqi was admissible. This includes 93 statements made by Senator Hanson intended to illustrate consistent racism. Ms. Chrysanthou argued in the hearing, no, we don't have an open and transparent parliament. We don't. And that's the problem. Don't we know it? Ms. Chrysanthou argued that the trial should not be a royal commission into Senator Hanson, and he said sharpen its focus on the events immediately related to the offending remark. The court heard Senator Faruqi had provided the ABC with legal materials prior to her declaration of defamation proceedings against Senator Hanson. Senator Faruqi did not recall this event. Ms. Chrysanthou told the court that it was done to garner publicity. Senator Faruqi denied exaggerating her emotional distress or impulse for self-censure following the tweet by Senator Hanson. While further comments have been made, it has taken so much thinking and effort and mulling over and over and again and having to question myself, she said. I look at every single word I say to try and avoid the same sort of backlash Senator Hanson unleashed. I started experiencing racism in an overwhelming way once I entered public life, but I've not experienced the level of sleepless nights and waking up in distress like I have since Senator Hanson's message. This tendency material included Senator Hanson's submission of It's Okay to Be White bill, her referring Australia to being swamped by Asians in her 1996 maiden speech. interesting because, again, stuff in Parliament, in my opinion, from my understanding, is privileged information. Anyway, Justice Stewart suggested the 93 statements made by Senator Hanson on the grounds of racist sentiment could be proof of consistency of belief and a tendency to make statements because of race, colour, nationality, or ethnic origin of another person. The statements were largely deemed admissible, including a number of media reports which could be found to be hearsay. And before the court is an online the court is an online survey sourced by Mark Lawyers titled "How Does It Make You Feel?" It called for participants to indicate your view on the tweet by Senator Hanson. The survey was viewed by 9,430 people, and 776 people filled it out. 9 of them had their Twitter accounts tendered as evidence in the form of lay affidavits. Ms. Taylor alleged that these affidavits would be a drawing in technicolor of real-life experiences for people in the racism people get in the community. Senator Faruqi sought damages include $150 donation from Senator Hanson to the sweatshop literacy movement, her enrollment in anti-racism training at her cost, and publishing an apology tweet. Both senators have partially funded their legal costs through crowdfunding. The hearing will continue Tuesday. So tomorrow, Senator Hanson will be cross-examined. So let me just go back here. I'm just going to go back here a little bit. So just to remind you what was said. So the Guardian sort of has there's not a lot on there. So Sue Chrysanthemum said to Senator Faruqi, "You've come here to use the witness box as a soap opera to give speeches to further your political ends." Faruqi has accused Hanson of breaching Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act with a message she posted on the social media platform Twitter, now X, on the day of Queen Elizabeth II's death was announced in September 2022. Hanson's message was responding to one that Faruqi had posted, offering condolences to those mourning the Queen, but declaring, "I cannot mourn the leader of a racist empire built on stolen lives, land, and a wealth of colonized people." Hanson wrote, your attitude appalls and disgusts me. When you immigrated to Australia, you took advantage of this country. You took citizenship, bought multiple homes and a job in Parliament. It's clear you're not happy, so pack your bags and pee off back to Pakistan. In the federal court today, she described Hanson's tweet as racist and said it prompted a barrage of other abusive messages and caused severe stress. "I understood this to be particularly pointed at me, that I don't have the same rights and the same benefits that Australia offered to every other citizen of this country," she said. Chrysanthemum accused Faruqi of hypocrisy, saying she'd already received a barrage of criticism in her initial tweet before Hanson posted hers. Chrysanthemum also said Faruqi had continued to make public comments about colonialism since Hanson's tweet, despite arguing before the court that it had caused her serious hurt and led to self-censoring and self-doubting. "It's pretty clear when you're referring to Pakistan that you're referring to a brown person who is Muslim," she said. Chrysanthemum asked Faruqi if she'd ever heard the phrase "bite the hand that feeds you." Faruqi said she had. She said Hanson's tweet was a version of go back to where you came from. "What I understand from that tweet is that Senator Hanson has targeted me with a racial slur which has a very long history in this and other countries." So there you go. And then there was, So that is essentially what's happened. So yeah, I just wanted to know, particularly when it's dealing with racial discrimination, particularly when the matter it went into Parliament. Essentially, Pauline Hanson did say that she'd be happy to drive her to the airport so she could catch a plane. I'm just wondering what you think. Should politicians be able to do that? I've just look at this. 10-year-old has died after allegedly being stabbed by a 17-year-old in New South Wales. I cannot believe they arrested 17. They're both linked. What is wrong with knives at the moment? There seems to be a big knife problem. What, sort that one out? Oh. I mean, that's why yeah. I mean, I don't know how here's just something again from earlier. Sorry, I'm a bit all over the place as I usually am. Twitter has Sue Holt messages from X. It says here, Twitter is an extraordinary effect at amplifying the dog whistle creating pile, and there's volumes of it. The chronology and the context is the key in the case. Because Sathir said Hanson had sworn allegiance to the Queen in taking her position in the Senate in 2016, and Faruqi had done the same in 2018. She argued this is relevant to her client because Faruqi had engaged in hypocrisy. Well, that's the thing. This is the thing. Is it racist or is it personal? And that's what Pauline Hanson's arguing, is that it's not actually. The argument is that they actually don't like. It would seem that they don't like each other. She argued that it's relevant to her client because Faruqi had engaged in hypocrisy yet again in my client's mind, and it needed to be called out. Santhi told the court, one might think on reading the tweet at the time, on the day that it was posted, that it was intended to elicit a reaction. One might think just on reading that tweet that it was intended to provoke, and it was intended to offend, and it was intended to upset those who read it. Kitsathu said that merely referring to someone's race or ethnic background is not sufficient to prove the act was done because of that was a fact. Kitsathu argued the provision of the Section 18C potentially impeded the implied constitutional right to freedom of political communication. The Commonwealth Attorney General is also being represented because of the issues arising around the constitutionality of Section 18C. The other thing that we need to note is because they're two federal ministers, there is a lawyer that's there that's representing the Commonwealth to make sure that neither of them say anything that can't be said that affects the Commonwealth. So the original tweet that was said was Hanson's tweet was in response to a tweet Faruqi posted on 9th of September. The full tweet said, "Condolences to those who mourn the Queen. I cannot mourn the leader of a racist empire built on stolen lives, land, and wealth of colonized people. We are reminded of the urgency of the treaty with First Nations, justice and reparations for British colony and becoming a republic." So Pauline Hanson responded, "Your attitude appalls and disgusts me. When you immigrated to Australia, you took advantage of this country. You took citizenship, bought multiple homes and a job in Parliament. It's clear you're not happy, so pack your bags and pee off to Pakistan." And Faruqi has taken that to read a version of, "Oh, well, it's an anti-migrant, racist, native phrase, go back to where you came from." So if I remember reading that tweet from her and being from the Senator Faruqi and being, I remember thinking at the time it was not the right time to make a tweet like that. And it was interesting because it wasn't just her. Anybody that did something that was deemed to be against the Queen, there was lots of people at that time that got Harrison's telling me it's time to finish my stream. Apparently. That was Harrison. So just so that you know, say hello to Harrison. He should be watching. So anyway, I just thought I'd put it out and see what you all thought. What happens. I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, you see politicians suing all the time. We had Senator Hanson Young sue somebody because he said something offensive to her in Parliament. Is there a part of it where being part of public life is that, well, was it racist? Was it racist? Or was it just somebody, again, was it the fact that I'm not going to make any statements or was it just someone really sad about the Queen and was going, hey, how dare you speak that? As I remember thinking it wasn't the right time to make a comment like that. So, yeah, so that's why I'm interested to see what everybody thinks, because you're all much more intelligent than me. So, like our Parliament when they could say what they thought and no one gave two hoots. Australia is nanny and weak, and that's what. Oh, it's not doing us any good. And I think I've been really thinking about these knife attacks because I know the parents of the boy that I think he was on four. He was going to be on. They were being interviewed on Four Corners or something today. But I'm wondering. I mean, and I saw that there was another shooting in the US and another young person. I'm sort of getting and talking because I work with kids and I talk to kids every day, and I'm wondering whether kids are so desperate at the moment to being heard that they're actually going to, the only way they can get attention from people is by being violent. That seems to be what I have no evidence to back this up, but it's from what I'm seeing. They'll say this kid's troubled, this kid's this kid's had this. When nobody listens to you and you want to teach it, and remember, we live in a society now where people are on our phones all the time, parents are working, parents don't have time, kids are in after school care and childcare, and there's just so much pressure around, and I can't help but wonder whether there's a big cry out for help at the moment. And if we somehow went back to what was, and I don't want to say a simpler life, but you think about going back and eating meals together as a family and having a day dedicated to the family where you'd spend time together, whether that is what's needed, I don't know. But the whether giving schools back the power, I'm not talking about corporal punishment, but to be able to put punishments in place for children, put boundaries back in place for people, empower the parents and teachers to be able to do that. I don't know, but I'm just seeing time and time again, and I'm listening to kids and they're talking to me, and some of them, all they want is somebody to sit and talk to them and listen to them in a lot of cases. So the boy that, and then I'm thinking, and then the other thing is, and I'm just wondering whether some of the people from other cultures, they come and they're so desperate to hold on to their culture. So I've got one child goes to a different class every day. So they do school all day, they go home, and then they have to do the language that their parents speak. They've got to do classes for that. They've got to do more academic stuff. They've got to do this and this and this. There's no time for them to be kids. It's all about, and I'm wondering whether also that there is a pushback from kids on the culture of their parents. Some kids have said to me, I see all my mates, they get to play football on Saturday. I have to go to whatever school on Saturdays. And I'm wondering whether we're going to have a generation that's going to abandon their culture, and whether that's got something to do with it as well. I don't think. Look, I think there's been such an erosion of trust. I think that as well. Yeah, because kids used to be safe in certain places, and now we're not safe. I mean, they're not safe anymore. And that's the sad thing. So I've been doing some thinking about this, and I really don't know. But there has to be something that we can do. But I sort of think that maybe there is a I'm just wondering if there isn't a pushback against their culture at the moment, and they're just looking for a way out of their culture. And again, another way to get out of the culture is to be bad. So I mean, I know when I was a kid, a lot of the stuff that kids have to deal with now, I never had to deal with, I could be a kid. Are we trying to make the kids grow up too fast? Is that what part of our problem is? I don't know. But what I find to be really interesting, though, getting back to our headline, what I've titled this stream, is that, remember, you can't sue for defamation over hurt feelings. So if your feelings are hurt and you want to get somebody and you're able to, so she's done it through racial discrimination. So that's the only way, because she couldn't do it with defamation because her feelings were hurt. So she's had to do it through racial discrimination. So I have issues. I sort of have issues with that as well. So do I think Pauline Hanson's got clean hands? No. But you do know where you stand with her, though. I will give you that. She does not dance around. She will tell you exactly what she thinks, and so that's, rightly or wrongly. And once upon a time, they used to be able to say what they liked and be free to do it. Actually, she'll order. I mean, imagine Paul Keating in Parliament today. He would not. They would not like him. Let me just get one of my favorite Paul Keating moments. I was a kid when Paul Keating was Prime Minister. I'm just laughing already. I can just see it. Anyway, here's one. Here's one now. Oops.
To the Senate to account to this. Then you want a House of Representatives minister from the representative chamber to wander over to the unrepresentative chamber and account for himself. You've got to be joking. Now, whether the Treasurer wished to go there or not, I would forbid him going to the Senate to account to this unrepresentative swill over there, where
the House will come to order.
A political stunt. Then you want a House of Representatives minister from the representative chamber to wander over to the unrepresentative chamber and account for himself.
Short order says it's been very hard for them and their parents over the last 5 years. This fear-based, fear-driven isolation has changed kids' behaviour. Well, and that's the other thing it has. That's changed kids' behaviour a lot. Paul Keating. Oh, imagine all the Oh, imagine all the defamation. Imagine all the times he'd be in trouble. Here's another one I love. This is another one. This is one of my favorite Paul Keating moments.
Of course, mate.
If you are so, I ask the Prime Minister, if you are so confident about your view of fight back, why won't you call an early election?
Because, mate. Because.
Order.
The answer is, mate, because I want to do you slowly. I want to do you slowly. No, I know. There's got to be a bit of sport in this for all of us. No. There's got to be a bit of sport in this for all of us. And in the psychological battle stakes, we are stripped down and ready to go.
I ask the Prime Minister, if you are so confident about your view...
Oh, that's one of my favourites. Oh. He'd be in trouble for that line. Oh, he'd be in trouble for that line now, short order, because they'd say that was harassment. Oh, look. Here's another one. I know, I could just watch Paul Keating stuff all night because, everyone was a scumbag. Here's another one. He's my favourite. He's my favourite Prime Minister as far as entertainment value is concerned.
Are you accepting it?
Questions. The Leader of the Opposition is truncating.
Are you accepting the?
Well, of course, Mr. Speaker, he's wound up like a 1,000-day clock.
Are you accepting it?
One half more turn, there'll be springs and sprockets all over the building.
Are you accepting it?
No, of course
No.
not. It's rubbish.
The government is not accepting it.
We'll pick it up in 2 weeks' time.
Order!
Mr. Speaker, give him a Valium. Give him a Valium, Mr. Speaker. He needs it.
Are you accepting?
Give him a Valium. Give him a Valium. I know, that's when, that was question time. But yes. I mean, it was question time just to hear the whiners, I reckon. He was he's still very quick-witted. But yes, he would not. All right, let's have a look at this one. And I won't stay on very long. I've got a job interview tomorrow, and apparently I'm 1 of 5. I've got 1 in 5 chance tomorrow. So I don't know. Maybe. Okay, here we go.
I mean, yesterday or the day before it was Mr. Harcher from the Herald who had been manipulated by my staff to produce his analysis of the Murphy model. Now it's the ABC. That was the Sydney Morning Herald, now it's the ABC. That's the ABC, now the Treasury, with the Teachers Federation wrapped in. I mean, he's going, Mr. Speaker, he's going troppo. He's more to be pitied than despised. He's simply going troppo. And we just leave him with his little motion and with his loyal and trusted deputy sitting beside him.
Imagine how many people would watch Parliament, though. How many people would pay attention to Parliament if you had that? Oh. He's going troppo. Oh, dear. Oh. and then he didn't like protesters. This was him. Oh dear, I love it. This was in 90. Oh. Well, the thing is, short order, it'll be a full-time job. So it'll be just what I need, just to sort of have things calm down a bit. Anyway, have a look at this one. He told them to go get a job like normal people. Going troppo. It is very Australian, going troppo. But see, again, you wouldn't be able to say that now because then it would be deemed as making fun of somebody's mental state. So you can see how things can be taken now. And for those in the US, Paul Keating does not like Donald Trump, by the way. But he's still very vocal, and he's still quick-witted and has the great one-liners. So, but yeah, but there's some of the great stuff that I can remember. Oh yeah, here's another one. He goes after the front bench. He goes after the. This is when he was. So he wasn't prime minister here. He wasn't the prime minister. This was when he was treasurer. So he was treasurer. So this is what he was like when he was treasurer.
Of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, my question without notice is to the Treasurer. Treasurer, in your last answer you said that you did speak to the Reserve Bank of Australia, but yesterday you said that it was your staff that spoke to the Reserve Bank, and I remind you of Hansard, page 2860, that says, I was asked to approach the National Australia Bank in this regard. This I did not do, but my office did inquire of the Reserve Bank whether it was aware that Rothwells may have ongoing difficulties. So did you or did you not speak to the Reserve Bank? If you did speak to them, exactly what advice was given to you? And in respect of the advice that you said was given to you on the 23rd of October, was it advice given to you orally? If so, from whom? Or was it advice given to you in writing?
The Honourable Treasurer.
Tut, Sherlock, tut. I mean, Mr. Speaker, really, to try and, I mean, look, how desperate are they? WA Inc. has fallen apart because we've established the real WA Inc.'s over there, with the old established, with Red, not Red Fred, Dead Fred,
Order.
as he's been called by his colleagues around the member for Pearce. I can't say the late member for Pearce because he's still here. I mean, the fact is, the oldest established gold mining industry has had links in the Liberal Party, particularly Western Mining Corporation and other companies, for years. You've given that up because you've got nowhere, and now you're on to Rothwells in 1987, and to try and smother your embarrassment, you try to string out a series of pointless questions about Rothwell's rescue, in which the government was not involved. Now, Mr. Speaker, in the previous answer, if I'd said I spoke to the Reserve, as my office spoke to the Reserve Bank, I mean the office of Treasurer, the office I hold, I didn't personally speak to the Reserve Bank. My office spoke to the Reserve Bank, and the information came back to me. No, when I say I mean me or my office. But Mr. Speaker, why doesn't this pedestrian go back to a Liberal sub-branch meeting and try his wares there?
The Honourable Member for Canning.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is also directed to the Treasurer. Can the Treasurer inform the House of the economic rationale for levelling the tax playing field through the removal of tax concessions, and what are the government's intentions in this matter?
The Honourable the Treasurer.
Well, the rationale, Mr Speaker, the rationale is so that national resources savings, scarce national savings, go to the most productive places in the economy. That is, the notion of a flat field is a notion of a flat field at home. None of us believe there's a flat field abroad, but if we're in the position where we're not placing our resources in the best places in our own domestic economy, then of course we're doing ourselves a disservice. And the preference, the tariff preference and tax preference, which has otherwise dragged national savings from one place to another and put them in places which have not optimised investment in Australia, have been part of our problem over the last 30 or 40 years. Now, that's why we removed, amongst other things, the exemption on gold mining income, because it was taking investment into gold mining where it might have otherwise been, in national terms, more optimising in
I know, tut, Sherlock. I know! This is what we're missing in politics.
other parts of the economy. And that's why, Mr Speaker, the government moved the...
Imagine if they all sued him, though. Imagine if he ended up in court every week.
remove the gold tax exemption. But the fact of the matter is, Mr Speaker, this has been a big issue in Australian public life. And if you go back to 1985, when the member for Bennelong was leader of the Liberal Party, we found in the Kalgoorlie Miner, it says, Liberal tax threat stuns goldmen. The gold mining industry has been stunned by Shadow Treasurer John Howard's statement the next Liberal government would consider introducing a tax on gold. The President of the Kalgoorlie South Division of the Liberal Party, Mr Krepp, dismissed Mr Howard's comments, which runs against current party policy.
There's Mr Hawke, Prime Minister Hawke. He still didn't answer the question really, me or my office. Isn't that like going back to where he came from? Yes. Correct, short order. Correct. No one blinked. That's right, no one blinked.
Quote, Mr Howard's a crack at the industry every year, Krepp said. It is Krepp, that is. It is his hardy annual. Every time he meets members of the other mining industries, he tells them that a gold tax would be considered. Now that's the sort of this is part of the ambience of the time. Then there's another report in the West Australian in August '85. The Western Australian Liberal Party is in a quandary over the Liberal Party's policy on the gold tax. The state Liberal leader, Mr Hassel, who has fought strongly against the Hawke government's proposed gold tax, is worried by the possibility that his party would introduce a gold tax. Yesterday he asked the federal Liberal leader, Mr Peacock, to explain fully remarks made by his party spokesman on Treasury matters, Mr Howard. Mr Howard is reported to have said that he could not guarantee that a future Liberal government would not introduce a gold tax. I strongly urge that such uncertainty be clarified, says Hassel. And then in the same paper, on the 10th of August, '85, a couple of days later, 2 days later, it says the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Peacock, yesterday reaffirmed the party's commitment not to introduce a gold tax. So here he is. 2 days earlier, he got Hassel having a go at him. 2 days later, Peacock's moved straight back into line. He's reaffirmed there'll be no gold tax. The statement stems from a plea for the clarification by the WA Opposition Leader, Mr Hassel. The WA branch of the party was left in a quandary over the federal party's policy after Mr Howard had said what he had to say. And then, in the Australian, Peacock reaffirms party's opposition to a gold tax on the same day, the 10th of August. He says, now clear for all to see that the federal Liberal Party's policy in line with my views on the matter, said Hassel. Now, we then jump 2 years to the lovely Senator Panizza, apparently is in the gallery today, although I don't know him, so I can't recognise him.
He's in the gallery today. I don't know him, but I can't recognise him.
Now, we then jump 2 years to the lovely Senator Panizza, apparently is in the gallery today, although I don't know him, so I can't recognise him. But he had this to say in his maiden speech. I wish to thank the Liberal Party of Western Australia for the opportunity for me to realise the ambition I have had since I was a 20-year-old to be elected in this chamber. Well, the senators come in to hear what we say about them. They hear what we've got these days a lot to say about them, particularly West Australian senators. At that election, the West Australian team consisted of Durack, Senator Cheney, Senator Crichton Brown, Senator Knowles, Dr Alan Eggleston and young Cam Tinley and me, he said. This was obviously called the gold ticket. The gold ticket. I'm an old boy of the college in Perth, the Aquinas, which has turned out many good politicians. There were 3 old boys in the Liberal Senate team, Cheney, Durack and me. Also, the lovely Laurie Connell went to this school, so I'm told. But then he goes on to say this.
Yes, I know, Howard Hawke Keane, it's like Warnie, Merv, Booney. It is, isn't it?
Say this. There have been noises in this place and others that a gold tax should be... Well, we can't be perfect, can we? Mr Speaker, noises on this place and others that a gold tax should be introduced. Mr Speaker, but listen to this one. No one would dare impose such a tax, says Senator Panizza. And then he's got another one headed, all that glitters. We are killing the goose that's been laying a very valuable egg, Senator John Panizza asked today. Are we killing the goose that laid a very valuable egg, Senator John Panizza? Yeah, but laying the egg for whom? Obviously not the nation, only the people who they received election funding from. In the last adjournment debate for 1990, the Senator drew attention to the state of the gold industry in Australia. And then we find that the debate goes on into 1988, and by then what's happened is Mr Peacock has gone, Mr Howard as leader, and the member for Bennelong, and the federal opposition, he says, was reported, will fight the government's plan for a gold tax, despite Leader John Howard's recent support for it on economic grounds, and we start seeing it come through then. And then there's a question put to then Senator Cheney by Michael Maher. I'm not sure of the reference on the World Today, 9th of November 88. Was Mr Howard rolled by the joint parties on the issue of gold tax? No, not at all. But then we find, in the last couple of days, we've got the member for Bennelong saying to Mr O'Doherty, well, West Australians were quite crucial. It was a great, but it was an impressive parliament, wasn't there? Short order. I mean, the good old days. And the good, I mean, imagine saying stuff like, well, we all can't be perfect. The decision to change your leadership. Howard, yes, I know that. Howard O'Doherty, I can only rephrase the question. Is it possible that business figures in Western Australia who would donate the Liberal Party had a say in your downfall? Oh, look, I don't. Look, I have no idea. Why don't you go and ask the relevant people? O'Doherty says, all right, perhaps we'll do that. But then on the ABC last night, we have Mr Middleton saying, Senator Cheney says, oh, that's a bit of Keating nonsense. Then Middleton says, but people close to John Howard, cop this one, people close to John Howard claim quite the opposite. They say they have no doubt that in 1989, opposition within shadow cabinet to a gold tax was used to make life difficult for the then opposition leader, the theme the government has taken up with gusto. Now, that is people... Now, while the member for Bennelong is not going to mark himself by saying this, that is, people close to him have. So they've gone and said there's no doubt that part of the reason for his removal was his attitude on the gold tax. And in the meantime, we've got I'm the man to lead, says Senator Cheney, Red Fred, now dead Fred, and then there's of course we keep coming back to this very, very interesting piece by Peter Rees. Again, the 4th of October 89, where he outlines it all, and we have this extraordinary claim that everyone has a distortion which suits them, Senator Cheney's claim, and you see all of the gold ticket people, including the member for Tangley, the member for O'Connor, and the member for Pearce, and the senators, some in the gallery, were about changing the leadership of the Liberal Party because Mr Howard was too expensive a person to the gold industry to be maintained as leader of the Liberal Party. They were not going to. They were not going to have any. They were not. I know. I mean, the message had gone out on you, John. They'd put a contract on you, old boy. They'd put a contract on you. The Goldies had put a contract on you. And what's more, they made it. They made it. And they only came unstuck when Cro-Magnon got out there bragging about it on television. Now,
order. The Treasurer will refer to members by their title.
Mr. Speaker, it is a serious matter. Mr. Speaker, it is a serious matter. It is a deadly serious matter when the policies of the Commonwealth can be voted against in this House and in the Senate to remove
the guy on the left of Keating, Beazley. That's King Beazley, the big guy. So you got King Beazley on the left. I can't think of the woman on his right, but she was instrumental as well. Oh, geez, I tell you, I know that this was long, but he's put some great one-liners in there.
taxation.
Order. Members of the government will cease interjecting.
Might add the Treasurer
The Leader of the National Party.
Beazley was the opposition leader at the time of Howard, I think.
On a point of order.
Immediately forgets about the coup against Bill Hayden, but
The Leader
take the point of order understanding 145.
Order.
But an answer.
Members on my right.
Shall be.
Order.
An answer shall be relevant to the question.
Order. Members of the government will cease interjecting.
And that you, sir,
Minister for Land Transport.
That you, sir, on a number of occasions have interpreted your standing orders and, in fact, told ministers to conclude the answers to their questions and sit them down. This time, the Treasurer's been going for over 10 minutes. We've had a very few number of questions in 50 minutes of question time. I ask that you carry out that direction again.
Order. The Treasurer is answering the question. The Honourable Treasurer.
I will draw to a close, Mr. Speaker, and just say that it is a pretty serious circumstance when good instincts, and on this, the member for Bennelong had good instincts. I mean, he's not all bad, Mr. Speaker. He's not all bad. He had good instincts on this, and that was he knew it was a ramp and a rort, that all minerals were taxed, income all minerals were taxed, and it was indefensible, and that the party posturing was notwithstanding, he is prepared to get up and support such a thing to be basically rolled over by the member for Kooyong with the support of these people from Western Australia. It is a serious incident in our national affairs, and what we discover now is basically done for money, for the support which the old gold industry and the new gold industry had been giving to the Western Australian Liberal Party to maintain the distortion. That is the member for Pearce's favourite distortion and favoured distortion. Now, this is, as I said, in the broadest sense of the word, rather than specific in a personal cash sense, this is corruption of our national affairs. Corruption of our national affairs.
So there you go. That was Keating at some of his finest. But yeah, there's lots of other. This one.
When you won't.
Order. The honourable member's time has expired. The question is that the motion be agreed to. This is Treasurer speaking to the Honourable Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker.
Order.
What a lightweight performer from a couple of consummate lightweights.
Order.
You all sat there last night while I reamed you out point by point. Reamed you out. You were sitting up there.
Order.
Old bow ties, the steam was coming out when you sat before an industry group as I took you through the absolute stupidity of your policy positions and against the history of the church. And why do you think, almost to a person, every business person in the place knew everything I said was dead right? Dead right.
Order.
I know what an absolute joke of a party you are. What an absolute joke of a party you are. And there we have, you can see how edgy and how flaky the Shadow Treasurer is. Last night he got reamed out over there. Today he's up here putting on this act. Last week he's attacking journalists personally, calling them Pavlov's dogs. He's attacking journalists, saying they're going when he gets into office and I'll cut them off from all information. This is the sort of little boy stamp your feet stuff you get from a financial market yuppie when you shoehorn him into Parliament. This is the sort of stuff when you get for someone unfitted for a major public office job and who is shoehorned onto the front bench because of an absolute absence of talent. An absolute comes in here who at best was a second stringer in the financial markets, wouldn't be good enough to make the A grade, a second stringer in the financial markets, who gets a bit of a bashing. Actually, you got a reasonable reception to your policy on day one from the press, but no, on the end of day one, who's up there attacking journalists and being entirely flaky and edgy? You guessed, the edgy, flaky member for Wentworth, the Shadow Treasurer, who's up here today. And he's up here talking about his policy and how we should respond. Here's a government that's carried the burden of change in the post-war years from you indolent, useless Liberals,
Indolent. Wow.
And what you've got a policy to throw $2.5 billion away in tax expenditures, and you think it's going to covet you in some sort of glory. We waited 2.5 years for you to bring down a tax policy. There's no rates, not one specification of rates. We still don't know whether the rate will be 39%, when, what the bottom rates will be, nothing. All we've got is the Liberals doing their usual thing, trying to buy votes for an election. In your conservatism, last time it was John Howard with $7.8 billion worth of bribes. This time you've had the decency to cut that in half. You're now down to about $3 billion worth of bribes. And then he's got the hide to say our fiscal policy will be 22% of outlays. That's like us. We end up with this enormous level of government spending, 30.7% of GDP. We finally rebuild the building, a proper building, and then it's like building the Empire State Building and this joker jumping in the lift, going to the top and putting a brick on top and saying, look what we've done, ours is bigger. Ours is bigger, you mug, you mug.
Order, the Treasurer might withdraw that remark.
I withdraw, Mr Deputy Speaker.
He had to withdraw calling him a mug.
And then we get down to the real recital. But I mean the height of them. His 22% of outlays, and they've attacked and ripped and torn at every spending decision the government's made for 7 years. My colleagues and I, who sit on the front bench, 5 of us who sat there for 3 months a year, twice a year, for 7 years cutting outlays, it's now his. He's expropriated it because he's going to add 140 million, he says, to a budget of 90,000 million. I mean, the pathetic quality of that remark. I mean, the shame of it all. I mean, you just should. Look, the thing about you lot, you've just got no shame. Maybe you're just a breed. You're just a breed.
Just a breed.
When you pop into this world, you're born with no shame. You know, maybe you're just a breed.
You could not get away with saying that now.
Mr Deputy Speaker, but then on the real issue of the current account, you read all this, and the big problem is the current account deficit.
Order.
The real problem is the current account deficit and debt and inflation. But what's the solution? To give away $2.5 billion worth of tax expenditures. That's it. I mean, and spend it. Yeah, cut it and spend it. I mean, that's the solution. I mean, it's unbelievable. But as I said last night, the real Lulu in the whole thing, the key line is the third last paragraph on page 22. By reducing inflation and shifting the weight off monetary policy, they'll lower interest rates. That is, we will have lower inflation, but in the company of lower interest rates. Now, this would be a world first. They're actually going to have inflation lower without the help of interest rates, because interest rates will be lower too. And they'll get inflation lower by having enterprise bargaining. Well, I mean, there wouldn't be an economist, an economic institute, the OECD, the IMF, nobody would regard that statement seriously. They regard that as a joke. And to think that you as a party, an alternative party of government, professing some capacity, would come along and put a piece of rubbish, an absolute piece of nonsense like that into a policy that you're going to deregulate the labour market, then all of a sudden there's going to be the great leap down in wages. Growth's going to go on, but wages are going to leap down. I mean, it's just unbelievable trite nonsense.
Order. Just
trite nonsense. I mean, you wouldn't have a wages policy. You heard what the MTIA said to you last night. They don't want any toe-to-toe contests. They want a mature industrial structure, an arbitration commission presiding over gradual change that can be afforded. You heard what they had to say, the people in the real world, to all of you. They dumped on you. That's what they did, dumped on you. And I know you're all whinging about the reception you got there last night. The fact of the matter is, I mean, you went to an industry group and they dumped on you and you cried like stuck pigs all night. You
Cried like stuffed pigs.
You thought it was a Labor audience. You thought it was a Labor group. I mean, you were pathetic because here you are, you're facing an industry group and what do they do with you? They wipe the floor with you. And finally, of course, when you really get down to it, you produce your policy, you sat there for months going over it, and what's the Finance Department say? It's got an $800 million error in it. An $800 million error. That is, the two departments administering these programs, the Department of Social Security, well, just hang on, the Department of Social Security and the Department of Finance. That's the department delivering the programs and the one monitoring them. They go through it and say it's got an $800 million error. Now, we all know it was about 1,000 or 1,100 million in reality. In other words, you got into Howard and the member for McKellar because he had a 19% error in the policy, but Stone and Professor Houston and the rest of them drop up with a 31% error. I mean, you couldn't even get that much right. And then, of course, yesterday we really find what your real policy is. We find what your real policy is on childcare, and that is you'll knock off the fee relief. We find out what your real policy is on childcare. You'll knock off the fee relief, and you're going to reduce the fee relief by the value of the rebate. In other words, you give $20 on the one hand and take it on the other. You're going to take away government, the growth in government centres, and throw the whole lot to the private economy. In other words,
actually, it's really quite sad. Do you think about this? This is like 1989. The Libs did some of this stuff, by the way, frequently, scarily.
All the mothers out there ought to know that they'll be being handled by private business in childcare, charging them about $100 a week, which you can now afford to give them $11.70. So they'll be charged $100 a week, and you'll give them $11.70. Now, you haven't got a ghost of a show. Imagine you lot managing, you say there's a debt crisis. I mean, imagine you lot managing a crisis. Could you imagine it? I mean, you'd be you can't even manage yourself in this place, managing a crisis. And here you are.
Order.
You know, you're talking about the debt and the current account crisis, but when you get your big chance to really do something about it, what do you say? We'll have a weaker fiscal policy. We'll have a non-wage policy, a cave-in like the pilots with enterprise bargaining, and basically what we'll do, we'll screw interest rates up to 25 or 27% to cut the heart out of inflation. I mean, in the end, you're the same dismal, thoughtless old crowd that you were in 1980-81. You're back to the same policies as 1980-81. You just get in there, lift interest rates, destroy business, and to try and destroy inflation. You haven't got a ghost of a show. This is not a policy. It's a sham. It's a joke. It has no macroeconomic structure. Andrew's laughing there. If the Prime Ministership was ever lifted on him, he would quake in his boots. Quake in his boots. He wants what he always wanted in life, a near victory. Andrew's best result is to nearly win. He loves to nearly win because winning carries responsibility, and the one thing he shies off responsibility like Dracula from a wooden stake. He's run back that far from any real responsibility. Mr. Speaker, the proposition's a joke, and the government will be opposing it.
Oh, there you go, some classic Keating. I tell you what, in that there was some classic in there. Dracula on a stake. So yes, so that was Parliament in the 1980s, late 1980s, early 1990s, and so that's what they were getting away with then. And so yeah, very, very interesting, I think. Anyway, I'm going to head off now. So as I said, I've got a job interview in the morning, so we'll see how it go. It would be the job of my dreams, I think. It will allow me to also study as well and work. And I think it would also be good to have a stable income and know that I can work and get paid. Yeah. So, rather than having to, chase people for money. Yeah, looking ahead from 1980s, wow, dismal old crowd, all right. Well, as I said, some of that stuff actually came through. Some of those policies they kept, and so they implemented. And so what he was talking about, the childcare rebate, is what they did. So it's a bit scary when you see that Keating actually was prophetic as to what was going to happen in the future too. Anyway, I'm going to head off now. Thank you for watching. That was a bit of a different. I wanted to do something different from good old Katie Joy because, yeah, just something different. Oh, look, he's hilarious. I love it. I love listening to Paul. Like I could just sit and listen to him for hours because I have to say that watching Paul Keating was really what got me interested in watching him in action in Parliament. Was really, as a child, got me inspired to take an interest in politics. That's why I have an interest in politics, because of him. And I don't know of anyone in the current government in Parliament at all that I would say inspires me. Yes, so if I do get that job, I'll be on even less, but there'll be you'll see, but you'll also see different content, completely different content from me if I get the job. But I'll be on at night because I'll be home. Anyway, I will catch you later. Thank you for watching. As I said, slightly different video. I hope you enjoyed some blasts from the past, and I will catch